Let's see the first one. Jesse,
Oh,
you made that coal mine loader that may look familiar to you.
oh, yep.
This is the first layout I had in my railroad room. Um, and you will see in the subsequent photographs how the changes happened. Um, but that coal mine, Walther's three bay kit, um, has existed since from when I started here in the mid 90s to this summer when it finally went away. And you'll see some of the reasons for it in the upcoming photographs. The there you see we're loading some Southern Pacific coal cars. We're using an old CF7, which I will show you in a second. And as some of you know who are have been subscribing to my Chamisa Standard and the Farmer and Rusty's blog, that coal is if you pay attention to our national network, coal is down to like 30% of what it used to be in our railroads. And I'm sort of following that a little bit. Plus, something else has occurred to me or has happened. I'm an operator and I operate my layout quite frequently. What I've found is that running a unit coal train and on a small layout, 6 cars is a unit train. I was not running coal as frequently as I had thought. So something had to give. And just before we leave this photograph, I want you to notice the town buildings. The on the right side of the photograph, there's a track going behind there. Actually, there is a main line and a passing track going around those little town buildings. That town area from the town where the aisle begins back to the sedimentary rock you see here on the left side of the photograph, that was at least 2 feet. And those of you who know that I'm 6'5" know that that was a bit of a reach for me. Can we have the next photograph, please? Here, there you can see we're switching some Denver and Rio Grande coal cars on that same first layout that was here. We have an empty coal truck going toward the mine. An old Roco S2 is switching. That means we were still DC at this time. I want to draw your attention to the darkness underneath the loading bays. You see the 3 loading bays. It looks like we're on bay 2 there, the middle bay. Um, let's see, what else do we want to point out here? Just as a little modeler's license, you'll notice the stairway. If you've seen photographs of the Walters kit, the stairway goes in the opposite direction, but that way it would have ended up in the middle of the track for bay 1. So I just turned it 180 degrees and had it go down there. Um, so you can see that there are in this photograph exactly 5 tracks between the aisle and the sandstone backdrop. Next photograph, please. There is that same area. You can see the old Elco S2 switching. Again, it's very dark. Also, that a loadout is on some straight tracks in a curve. So we have tight curves going in and tight curves going out and a little bit of straight track underneath the loadout. This was an operational pain in the you know what. Coupling and uncoupling was always difficult. Next photograph, please. I like this photograph, and I'm not sure quite why, but I decided to put this one in. And again, thank you, Eric, for putting this together. Again, you can see the darkness underneath. Again, we're on the middle track loading. You can see the track in front. That is track 1, which is where the more coarse coal would go, right? Because as your coal is coming out through the loader, track 3 would be the finest coal because you've got the screens. Track 2, medium grade, and then track 1 would be the coarsest coal. This photograph shows that nicely. Also shows you some of the land that was between me and the aisle and reaching over to try to throw the switches or couple or uncouple the cars. Next photograph, please, Eric. Now we have the current layout and the current regime. You'll see a little bit of bench work right below the 5303. I got tired of that reach. It was ridiculous. And Tim, if you have yet to build your layout, think about reach. And the older we get, the more a reach is a pain in the you-know-what. So anyway, you can see underneath, it looks like we're still somehow loading in that middle bay. Looks like we're loading with an SW on this one. This is the current layout, but with the old Red Canyon mine still there with the steps coming down. Next photograph, please. Similar situation again at the bottom left-hand side of this photograph. You can see the edge of the benchwork, and underneath this, of course, now is the current engine service area that was not on the previous edition of this layout. Again, you can see how dark it is under there. What we would do is we'd pull the coal cars out and then drop in a load when the car was in the position where you can see the SW engine, the 135. And so I would have a box of loads, and I slowly load, pull out, and drop in. And again, these 45-foot cars, coupling and uncoupling was always an issue. Next photograph, please. There you can see the change. There's the engine service area in the lower right-hand side. You can see where the edge of if you look right along the right side of that photograph, you can see where the bench work is. You can imagine if and that's a 2-foot deep bench there. You can imagine if that was up top and you were having to reach over. And so now we have this lovely grade going up, what's called the Doherty grade. We have the SD7 coming downhill here. You can see we're still loading. Much easier to reach in to deal with the mine, but still with these longer cars, it's not easy. Plus, I wasn't, as I said earlier with the first photograph, I was not running that many coal trains, and I had buku coal cars. Next photograph, please. I thought, wait a minute, let's change. I've had this old Medusa with another Walters kit, this old Medusa cement kit in a box since it came off the layout. And I thought, why not use it as a potash loadout? And all of a sudden, look, you can see the 3 tracks using potash, these small cube hoppers, which are 34 feet long. They can couple and uncouple much easier. The only real loading is going on in the loadout shed. I don't have to drop loads in. We just sort of, as we say in prototype, or as we make up the prototype in our models, make believe we're loading. And so I have installed this in that spot. It's much brighter. You can see the cars. Another thing, Eric, can you go back a photograph, please? Notice all those dark coal cars. Now I've got coal cars that look like they're made from aluminum, are painted, but these unit trains are all kind of monolithic, monochromatic. Can we go ahead, please? Here, all of a sudden, hey, we have some color. And I don't know, I was not yet operating. I just threw these cars on the layout so I could take photographs of what it would look like. But there's more color with these small cube hoppers. And so there's a little more aesthetic variety, for lack of a better word. Next photograph, please. Again, this is how it looks. There are these same old 3 tracks that used to be underneath that coal loadout. But now, as you can see, the tracks are visible. They're easily accessible. Only that small section of that outer track, or I guess you could say here, it's the inner track, the loading track, is you don't see the cars. So our loads are, it's easier to simulate the loading. If you look at the top of the silos, you can see a little um, mineway that's going back into the forest, back to where we're actually loading the potash. Um, Next photograph, please. This, I think, is our next to last photograph. Intrepid Potash is a real company. They are the people who had that mine at the end of the Potash branch in Utah off the Denver and Rio Grande, now the UP. I think that mine may still be in operation. It was a mine where they used evaporation to create what they were going to move out. Here we just pretend that the mine is behind the trees in a little valley, and we're pulling it forward and loading it here. And so I'm relatively happy. I find I'm running more trains over into Red Canyon now than I used to when it was coal. They're not as long. But then the other thing, if you remember, some flyers ago, I wrote a piece about having track in front of the engine and track behind the train, which made what you were doing look more visually interesting than having the train stretch from one 90-degree curve to another 90-degree or 180-degree curve. And while long trains are kind of cool, aesthetically, especially on a small layout like mine, there was just something kind of sort of visually not there that a shorter train can give you. And then in a sort of diversion from this topic, again, those of you who have been reading the Standard and the Farmer and Rusty's blog know that my short line, the San Ramon Valley and Northern, has ended its pursuit with tourist trains. And so there is the East Chamisa Depot where the Santa train and the summer tourist train up to the town of Meade used to load. As you can see, it is boarded up. And our local historical society is trying to negotiate purchase of this structure. And the railroad is happy to sell it to them, but they want the historical society to move it. The society does not have the money to move it. So now at this current status, it is just sitting there boarded up. Where there used to be a platform full of tourists, now it is empty. That's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening, guys.
Great, thank you. That was wonderful.
And if anybody wants to get the Standard and the Farmer and Rusty's blog, send me your email and I'll put you on the list. It comes out once a month, basically two emails, about 500 words each, sometimes less.
Yeah, and if you would like Ray's email, you can email the division if you want to, and I can forward you Ray's email and you can see those. great stories.